The Walking Dead, the final season, has reached its final episode just recently. After Telltale's demise, which I talk about in another video, people thought that no one would be able to finish this entire series, but they were wrong. Skybound Games pick up where they left off and finally finish the series for good. But is it all truly worth it? Welcome to appabendyt's Uncapped. I am dying for this to end. Today's review is gonna be on The Walking Dead, the final season, Telltale and Skybound's final entry of Clementine's story. But before we get to the review, I want to say huge thanks for liking and sharing my videos, subscribing and following me on social media, and for supporting me on Patreon, PayPal, and many other means, links down below. The Walking Dead Season 1 is among some of my favorite games of all time. It's a brilliantly told story of survival and despair in a zombie apocalypse scenario that truly grabs the heart of so many people, including myself. A legitimately emotional and tear-jerking story that I would recommend to anyone if you haven't experienced it yet. The sequels unfortunately were quite rough in their quality, ranging from okay to just bleh, and the final season is supposed to be the conclusion for the entire series, particularly Clementine's story. But as you already heard from the news, Telltale closed its doors and the series was doomed to failure, or at least that's what people thought, and here we are. The story picks up right after the third season, A New Frontier. It stars the series' main protagonist Clementine, obviously, as she's struggling to parent a child that she was left behind with named AJ. Now Clementine has to play Lee's role of parenting another child, and now it's up to us of whether or not we want AJ to be a good boy or a bad boy in this zombie apocalypse. You want me to talk about the gameplay of The Walking Dead? Don't be ridiculous. There's no such thing as a gameplay in a Telltale game. The Telltale games are merely over-glorified visual novels with more dialogue choices and less actual choices. And not enough sex scenes. It's a magic that worked so well when it was first introduced, but people quickly got tired the moment they show it over and over again. But to the game's credit, at least they tried to have some form of gameplay. I do like that some of the actions, like exploration, is now through a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective. Some of the game's action scenes are a lot more video game than an overly glorified QuickTime event, but describing them as overly glorified QuickTime events work just as fine too, because that's what they are. There's really nothing much to talk about in terms of gameplay, other than the game tries somewhat to be more like a game than its predecessor, which isn't saying much. That's like saying a vanilla ice cream is going to taste like chocolate if we splash chocolate milk at the top of it. So of course the gameplay is garbage, but most of you already knew that when you're jumping into a Telltale game. You're here for the story and the characters and the choices. How did they stack up? Well, not too bad actually. I'm legitimately impressed at how this game managed to capture the spirit of the original very well. I mean, sure, the plot is literally the same except the roles are switched, but it's not a bad plot by any means. I really love the story's ability of maintaining enough balance between comedy and drama. The Walking Dead is a consistently bleak and depressing universe, but it doesn't mean that there isn't light beyond the darkness. There's quite a lot of really heartwarming scenes, and that serves really damn well for the character developments of the brand new characters in the game. And speaking of which, the new characters are also not that bad. I immensely enjoyed their inclusion. They provided great laughs at a lot of points, but they're also very human. They feel sad, depressed, guilty, and broken inside. They might have done things that are evil and unforgivable, but it's not really because they are evil, but because they're desperate and needing help. AJ in particular is very much different to Clementine when she was little. He's a hell of a lot more like a loose cannon, which means that teaching him all the values that you believe would be a really difficult exercise, especially when he's mostly learning by both your example and through the harsh realities of the world surrounding him. Clementine herself is still as strong and as badass as she was in the past 3 chapters. She's struggling her hardest in being a mentor figure for AJ, while also suffering from uncertainties and difficulties herself, as she's slowly realizing the pressure that was built upon Lee when they were together. So the game has all the right things to become a gripping and engaging story that is worthy to be a conclusion to the original. And I have to admit, it was. I'm engaged with the characters. I'm engaged with the story. I want to know what happens next. I don't want my favorite characters to either suffer or die. It makes me feel like the original game again, and that's a feeling that is unfortunately lost as the series progresses from the original. But with that being said, that ending could be so much better. I understand the intentions, but I feel like it could have been better done. I do want to talk about the PC port for a bit because I find it bizarre that a cel-shaded narrative-driven game like this is able to bring my GTX 1050 laptop down into cinematic 30 FPS on the highest settings. I suppose some optimization would be nice, but damn, this game is a lot heavier than I thought. Overall, The Walking Dead, the final season, successfully recaptures the spirit of the original in some respects, but it unfortunately still follows Telltale's stale formula that never evolves beyond its original. It works for what it tries to do, and it feels very much like the original in a lot of ways, but it's still a Telltale game on its core. Maybe if there weren't so much backstage drama on this game, things would be different, and while the journey was remarkable, the conclusion was sketchy to say the least. Would I recommend this game? Actually, no. The Walking Dead should have been done by Season 1, and for the record, Season 1 is still absolutely amazing, and I still recommend you to play it if you haven't. The subsequent seasons range from bleh to just okay, and it got super predictable ever since. While the final season shows a lot more strength compared to its previous entries, I'd still recommend you to stick for the first one and never jump into the rabbit hole of the sequels. And even if I recommend this game, if you haven't bought the season pass on Steam when the first 2 episodes were released, you're going to be stuck buying this game on Epic Game Store brand new. That's right, Epic Game Store. More reasons to avoid this game, I suppose, unless if you have a console.